Okay, so let's talk about the instances in which the services that you all provide may be denied to someone because of their sexual orientation.
So we don't turn people away based on their sexual orientation. We don't ask any questions related to sexual orientation unless it comes up in the context of their legal case. And in that case, it would be explored to the extent necessary to discuss the legal proceedings.
Right, so you guys don't turn them away, but at the same time, you guys don't provide services at that point, once you find out what their sexual orientation is. Is that accurate?
No, so we do. We do provide legal services based on, if somebody's claiming asylum based on persecution based on their sexual orientation, we would provide services in a case like that.
For that context?
Right.
But if it's a gay couple, you guys would you or would you guys not provide services?
Currently, we are holding off on providing services until we get more guidance from our board.
Okay, so you don't have an official policy on it yet, but you're also not providing the services. Is that accurate?
Correct.
So what do you advise those folks that are in that situation, and you guys find yourself at that juncture? What do you advise?
What we've been telling them is that the board is still contemplating this issue, and that as soon as we have a policy, we'll move forward in whichever direction that the board advises, and that in the meantime we do have a list of other local attorneys and other legal service providers that we're happy to give them if they prefer to seek services sooner rather than wait for us to get back to them about a board decision.
So this is a policy matter that's going to be eventually decided by your board.
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay, and your board could possibly take this up in the future as a policy matter?
Yes, I assume they will.
Okay. Let's talk about this issue. It's obviously a very sensitive issue and something that the church is going to be struggling with, but because of the decision by the Supreme Court, and gay marriage is now recognized as the law of the land, and the organization receives federal funding. Obviously that becomes an issue when they have to comply with the requirements of federal law. So what's the church's position locally on this?
The church's position is, if you are a gay individual and you were to be seeking help from DRMS, DRMS will help you. You are never really asked about your sexual orientation. The only time that comes up is if a couple comes to DRMS, and let's presume that there's a couple that's a man and a woman. They're presumed that they're together. If in the course of in the course of an interview at DRMS, it appears that the couple is a same-sex couple, the church's position on that has been that they're not recognizing civil marriages. And so to provide services to a gay couple would then be an endorsement of something the church doesn't support.
So that kind of creates a kind of a sticky position for the church, because my understanding is someone who is an unwed mother would be provided services, or someone who is a divorcee would provide services, both of which the Catholic Church has a position against. How does the church, for lack of a better word, marry that up?
I think it's a good question. And it was something that I had to go back and get a little bit of background on as well. So this is my understanding from the Diocese of El Paso's point of view. When it comes to an unwed mother, the pregnancy itself is not an issue. The sexual activity prior to being married would be considered the sin of the church. With regards to a divorce, it's not necessarily the divorce itself, as I understand it. It's the actions that led to the divorce, which then could be reconciled in the sacrament of reconciliation. As it was explained to me, the divorce is seen as a tragedy. So the church doesn't really see a civil divorce, or doesn't recognize a civil divorce either. You would have to go through the annulment process. And so in those cases, that is the doctrine, the policy of the church, is to recognize those situations. I understand where it is that you're coming from, though. And I do think that it is one of those situations that Catholics look at as well and are trying to understand as well.
So what do you say to the person that's watching this that says, well, So the church will provide those services or okay the provision of those legal services to someone who is an unwed mother or a divorcee. But those same two individuals wouldn't be able to receive communion. So the church is saying it's okay in this circumstance. It's not okay in church. What would you say to people that had that question?
I understand why they're confused.